Hi everyone, it's Gwen from Hummingbird Tarot, and today I thought I would share with you the miniature decks that are in my collection and just talk a little bit about which ones I like the best and why and that sort of thing. So I do have small hands, so I have kind of a big collection of miniature decks just because these are the ones that I feel the most comfortable in my hand using. They're the easiest for me to shuffle, and I find that I do use these more than my other decks. These tend to be my go-to ones, especially if I'm doing readings that are not in my house. So I thought I'd start off with the decks that I have that are in a tin, and then I'll take you through the rest of the decks that I have that are mini in my collection. Most of these are tarot decks, and then I do have one Lenormand and another one that's an oracle deck, but the rest of them are all tarot decks. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell so you're notified every week when I upload a new video. If you've already subscribed, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you haven't, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you. And if this is your first time to my channel, welcome. I'm happy to have you here. And if you're coming back, I'm so happy to see you again. So the first deck that I have is the Sun and Moon Tarot. And these cards, I find that the decks of cards that I have in tins hold up really nicely. But the images in this deck are really nice. They're really miniature. I wish that they were a little closer. I think I'd probably prefer the bigger version of this deck because the images are a little hard to see. But I do like the size of this deck. But I feel like there's a lot of empty space in the top. And on some of the cards, that's good, but for the rest of them, I almost wish that it would zoom in a little bit more and maybe have a better use of the space, because that does feel like dead space in a lot of the cards to me. That one's nice because it goes a little higher. And here's what the back of this deck looks like. So the next one I have is the Radiant Rider-Waite. And this is one of the decks that I use more than any of the others. There's the back of the deck. And here's what some of the cards. This is just your standard Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and the standard images. These are a little more vibrantly colored, which is why I like this deck. The blues in here especially are nice. And it tones down. The yellows are nice and bright, but it's not quite as yellow as some of the other Rider-Waite-Smith decks are. This one is the Smith-Waite Centennial. This is the back of the Smith-Waite. And again, these are just the traditional images. I'd say these are a little more muted colors. These are a little easier on the eyes. Sometimes the Radiant Rider-Waite ones are a little bright. These are a little more muted. And these are nice. It's just your standard, again, Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And then the last one I have in a tin is the Morgan Greer deck. And I'm sure most of you have seen this deck. Oh, I thought it was upside down. I'm sure most of you have seen this deck before. Pretty classic images. Very vibrant colors. I really like this deck too. And I guess I should. All of the cards that we've looked at so far are the same size as this one that I'm going to use here. And this is a card out of the Universal Waite Tarot deck, and this is a standard tarot size. So those first decks of cards that are in tins, the first four that I showed you, are that size compared to a standard tarot deck. And then I'll show you the rest as I go as well. So this next deck I have is just the Rider-Waite Tarot. Here's the back of this deck. It's the plaid. And this is one of the decks I was referring to when I was talking about being very yellow. And you'll notice on some of these cards, the cards that I use when I'm doing readings for others, I have put clothes on them. And I've said this before. Some people find it jarring to have nudity in the decks. And rather than take a chance on having that energy interrupt the reading, I just put clothes on them. I don't personally have anything against that, but if I can make the person I'm doing the reading for more comfortable, my querent more comfortable, then I'd like to do that. This is, oh, I forgot to show you the size. This one's a little bit different size than the other one. It's taller, but it's about the same width. And I'd say this This is just a standard tarot deck size. It feels like to me shrunken down. Whereas those other ones in perspective feel a little shorter than a regular deck. So this next one is the Rider-Waite tarot deck, and this is a tiny one. This one is hard to shuffle. There's what the back of it looks like. Let me show you the size of this one. That's tiny. So I know people that do readings on camera sometimes like to use these smaller decks to do the readings because it's easier to have a nicer background and not have to zoom out quite so far. And these are the exact same smaller version of the Rider-Waite Smith deck. These do have the more vibrant yellow colors in this one though. And I do find this is one of the decks that I have kind of sitting out on my desk when I just am feeling like I need to fidget a little bit. I'll carry this deck around with me, or another little tiny one that I have that's this small, and just shuffle. I find it comforting. So this next deck is one that's newer to me, and I did a walkthrough of, I did a review of this one. This is the Everyday Witch, the mini version that I just got in the mail a short time ago. And this is the back. And these are exactly like the original ones. Let me show you size perspective. These are tiny. But these are the exact same images as in the Everyday Witch, the larger deck. It's just a smaller version, exactly the same. The image is exactly the same as in the bigger deck. Sorry, this is hard to do with this tiny little deck. So for shuffling this little deck here, what I end up doing is I just end up shuffling it like this. So I just have to keep my hands on it. I just put my thumb on there and I take some off of here. And if I want to do a riffle shuffle, which I did when I first started using it and I wanted to mix it up really well, I will just cut the deck in half here. I'll do a riffle shuffle this half, and then I'll do a riffle shuffle with this half, and then I'll cut the deck a little bit, and then I'll riffle shuffle it again if I want to mix it really well. But since then, I've found that just shuffling it like this, and I hold it kind of close to my body here, and that makes it easier to shuffle, because this small size is really hard to shuffle. But since I've gotten past that, I do find that I've used this deck a lot more than I thought I would. I was really concerned when I first got it that it was too small for me. And I like small decks, but this is a little small. But I have to say that I've learned how to use it, and it's working. Okay, so this next one is a practice deck. This is the Practical Tarot Wisdom. And this is the Radiant Rider-Waite deck, which is a Rider-Waite Smith deck. And it just has a description of each of the cards. And I just use this one sometimes with when I'm working with someone who's brand new to tarot. The back of those is the same as the Radiant Rider-Waite, but it has a white border around it. The Radiant Rider-Waite does. This is the size of that. It's actually close to the size of a regular playing card, like a poker deck. I don't have a box for this, but this deck is the I Am Power Oracle deck, and I have covered this in a lot of my videos before. There's like 100 cards, close to 100 in this, but it just has affirmations in it, and I actually like to use this one for daily polls. Sometimes I'll use it when I do readings for others. And that's how that one compares to a standard tarot deck. This too is one of my favorite decks, this next one. It's the Everyday Tarot by Bridget Esselmont. And this is the back of this deck. And these are purple and a gold, like a muted gold. There's a little bit of a sheen, sparkle to it. And then the only colors that are in the deck are the purple and the gold and white. I find this deck very soft in my hands, and this is another one that I like to just shuffle when I'm feeling nervous. It's very comforting to me to just handle this deck, but I also use it for readings. I find it very clear and to the point. It works really nicely in readings. And this is the size of this one compared to a standard tarot deck. This next one is the Gypsy Witch fortune telling cards. And you can actually use, if you take out some of these cards, you can use this as a Lenormand deck. And I actually put this in order. I was going to start, you can see the numbers up there, 1, 2. I was going to start playing with this as a Lenormand deck, and I just haven't gotten to it yet. This is a whole different system, the Gypsy Witch is, than tarot. And Lenormand is different than tarot and Gypsy Witch. So you can get some variety in your practice if you like. This is the back of the Gypsy Witch deck here. And this is exactly the same size as poker playing cards. And this is how the Gypsy Witch size lines up against a standard tarot deck size. The next one I have is the Celtic Tarot. You can see here. I actually have the larger size of this deck because I really liked it. But I found that I prefer the smaller deck because the images are very crisp and clear in this. And in the larger version of this deck, the images lose some of their sharpness, like they're a little out of focus, which I didn't care for. But this deck is a very easy read too, very clear and to the point. But this deck is, I find it very aggressive. It's like that sassy girlfriend who gets in your face, doesn't pull any punches, tells you exactly how it is and what their opinion is with no concern for how you're going to feel with that news. So I try to reserve this deck for when I'm feeling spunky myself. Otherwise, it's sometimes a bit much. This is how the Celtic Tarot lines up against a standard tarot deck. The last 2 decks I actually have came in this kit, the complete tarot kit. And I bought some used cards off of someone and they included that. And I wasn't really interested in this kit, but I was interested in the other decks that they were selling. So I went ahead and bought it. But I actually have found that that kit is a really interesting perspective. It compares the Rider-Waite-Smith against the Thoth Tarot. And it goes through every single card and talks about both of them and the meanings behind them. So the book is actually a really good read. And I love the cards that came with it are a little bit smaller size. And these are the last 2 cards that I have. But they've got a Thoth deck and a Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And I kind of feel like this was a bonus. I really enjoyed the book. I feel like even though I've been reading tarot for over 20 years, over 25 years now, every book that I read, every event that I attend, every class that I take, even if it's a beginning one, sometimes I'm interested in just seeing what other people are teaching out there, that there's new information, new perspective, a new way of doing things that I am not currently doing in my practice, or it's something that I learned about a long time ago and I forgot about, and it reminds me of new ways, and it constantly keeps things new and interesting. And I really was surprised by that kit and the book that came with it, and feel like that was probably the best purchase out of everything, even though originally it wasn't what I wanted. It was a package deal and I just got it as an extra. So the 2 decks that came in this, the Thoth deck, and it's got a white border around. The Thoth deck has got the white border around the outside, and this is your standard Crowley Thoth that you're used to seeing on those images there. And then this last one, which is called the Rider-Waite Tarot, but it came in that kit, has this on the back, the plaid that you've seen many times before, and then just the standard images here. So I actually end up using those cards quite a bit. I do like the Crowley Thoth. I've spent some time with that, and I like when I'm doing readings, I like using the smaller version. I also have the really big one, and I like that big one for really when I'm focusing in on one card and studying it. It's nice to have it be a much bigger zoomed in version of it, but when I'm actually using it, I like using the smaller version of that deck. So that's my miniature decks there, and I hope you enjoyed this. I had fun making it, and I'll see you on the next time around.